Let's make a DIY Christmas card using Cricut watercolor cards and watercolor markers. Starting in Cricut Design Space, I'm adding in a rectangle. Then I'm going up to this little lock and pressing on it to unlock the proportions. This way I can make it into a rectangle instead of a square. And I'm changing the width to 12.1 centimeters and the height to 16.8 centimeters. And this is the size of the front of the card. And I'm just changing it to white. Now I'm going over to the side and clicking on Images. And I searched for Christmas and checked off the free box. And I want to look for an image that'll work really well with the Cricut watercolor markers. So you can see this first wreath here has a lot of open edges. Not all of the elements are closed, where the second one, each color is its own individual section and is closed off, so that'll work really well with the watercolor markers. I'm going to add in this wreath. Then I'm resizing it and dragging it down to the bottom of my rectangle. Now I'm going back to Images, scrolling down, and I'm looking for something that says Merry Christmas or something like that to go on the top of the card. This one looks pretty good, so I'll add that to my canvas. And I don't really like how off-centered the Merry and the Christmas are with each other. But as you can see, there's no ungroup button. So if you run into an issue like that, what you can do is duplicate it. So now I have 2 of these Merry Christmas images. Then I'm going down to the bottom right-hand corner and clicking on Contour. Now this pops up where you can hide the contours. So I'm clicking on everything in the word Christmas. And now you can see I'm only left with Merry. And I'm going to repeat the process again with the first Merry Christmas image and get rid of everything in the word Merry. Click X, and now I'm left with the word Christmas. So now I can drag over the Merry and the Christmas separately and arrange them exactly how I want them on my card. I'm playing with the sizing quite a bit and aligning the wreath to the center of the card and trying the same thing with the Merry and the Christmas, just seeing what looks best, adjusting the sizes and moving them slightly around until I get it looking just how I want it. Now that I have the positioning down, I'm clicking on Merry, then going up to Operation and changing it to Pen. Then clicking on the square beside Pen, clicking on this drop-down menu and changing it to Marker. Then scrolling all the way down until I find the watercolor marker section. And I'm going to make the Merry part red. Then I'm doing the same with Christmas, changing the operation to Pen, switching it to Marker, then scrolling down and choosing the green watercolor marker. If I zoom in here, you can really see what's going to happen with the letters a lot better. So on the Christmas, the H, the center part there is quite filled in when I have the word smaller, versus when I make it bigger, it'll leave more of a blank space in the H, like how it's typically supposed to be. And that's just because the markers are quite thick. So it's giving you a representation of what it's going to look like when the Cricut draws it out on the card. Now, no matter how big I make it on this card, I'm still getting that filled in section on the H. And I decided I don't really mind that at all. I think it'll turn out just fine. Just be aware that that could happen, especially with these cursive letters. Now I need to change the operation of the wreath from basic cut to draw as well. Over on the right-hand side under Christmas wreath, you can see the 3 different elements of the wreath. I'm starting by clicking on the bottom section. Then I'm going over to Operation, changing it to Pen, clicking on Marker, then scrolling down to Green Watercolor. Now I'm clicking on the next section, which is the red part of the wreath, changing it to Pen, Marker, and scrolling down to the red watercolor marker. And lastly are the little yellow parts on the wreath. I need to change it to Pen, Marker, and yellow watercolor. Now I can delete the rectangle because I don't need that as my guide anymore. And I'm selecting everything and clicking on Attach. And now it's time to click on Make It. On this screen, make sure to change the matte to Card Matte, then click on Continue. For the material, I'm clicking on Browse All Materials, then typing in water. And you can see the watercolor cards comes up as an option, so I'll click on that, then done. Now it's telling me I need to load the green watercolor marker first into the Cricut's clamp A. But first I need to add my watercolor card into my card mat. You can see the card mat has space for 4 cards at a time, but for today I'm just going to do 1. This is the card. It's made of watercolor paper, which is really cool. So I'm opening up the card and then sliding it into the card mat. Now I'm taking my green watercolor marker and popping it into clamp A on my Cricut Maker. Then I loaded the mat into the Cricut and pressed on go. And now you can watch as it's drawing the design. Once it's done with the first color, it will stop, then tell you which color to load in next. So for us, that is the red. I'm adding in the red pen, then pressing on go again. And now it's writing out Mary along with the bow for the wreath and the ribbon. And then I'm repeating the same process with the yellow marker. Once the whole design has been drawn out, now it's time to use the water pen. I added some water into the pen, then squeezed the water so that it came out on the brush end a little bit. Then I'm dabbing it onto the paper towel because I don't want it to be too wet. Then you start along the edge of the color and lightly drag it toward the center of each letter and all of the images. You can always squeeze more water if you need to, but I find that once I squeeze the water into the brush, then dab it onto the paper towel, then it's good for quite a long time to go through and color in all of the designs. Also make sure to dab off the water pen onto paper towel between each color. And I found it's a lot easier to work from left to right as much as possible so that you don't smudge any of the color with your hand. And now it's just a matter of coloring in the whole design and watching it come to life. This part is always so satisfying, and obviously it takes a little bit longer than what you're seeing here, which is a sped up version, but I just love how easy this is, and look how impressive this is. No artistic skills needed. Such a pretty and fun idea. And then of course we need to write on the inside of the card also, so I'm going to show you how I do that. Back in Cricut Design Space, I have my rectangle. I started by writing out a generic Christmas card sentiment and just making the font smaller so I can kind of see what's going on. Then going over to font, I clicked on the little menu here and selected writing and free. And this will show me all the fonts that the Cricut is going to be able to write with. So I'm going through and clicking on all the different fonts and seeing what I like best. And I finally decided on this Alyssa stencil script. So I'm adjusting the size, making it bigger, smaller, putting words on different lines, just arranging it until it's how I like it. And I do end up playing with this quite a bit. Once I have all the words ready to go, I'm clicking on Make It, changing it to the card mat. And for this one, I had to change the material size because it was coming up as a smaller card. I selected this drop-down menu and clicked on R40. After clicking on Continue, I changed the base material to watercolor cards again. And now it's telling me to load my black 0.4 pen into clamp A. Before doing that, I need to add my card back into the card mat, but this time I'm folding it inside out, then sliding it into the card mat like this. Now I'm adding the pen into the Cricut clamp. I loaded the mat into the Cricut, but I found that when it fed it through and then came back, it was really eating the card and kind of messing it all up, which was super annoying. So I found that it was a lot better to tape down the sides of the card, and that way it stayed in place. And it did get a little bent out of shape because I didn't know to do that at first. But now you can see the Cricut is writing out our Christmas card message with the pen onto the card. Now I'm unloading the card, and folding it back over the right way. And this is our finished DIY watercolor Christmas card. Let me know in the comments if you have ever tried this, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. And I'll see you next time.